Softly, the sound of a haunting carol begins to play. A voiceover whispers ominously. They thought it was just a song, until it became a summons. The camera slowly fades into a snowy, remote cabin. The glow of warm lights contrasts with the cold wilderness outside. It was supposed to be a perfect Christmas. Snow, laughter, and the warmth of family. But deep in the woods, this family was about to discover that some songs are better left unsung. LA shadow flickers outside the cabin window, unnoticed by the family inside. The family is gathered around a crackling fireplace. Christmas decorations fill the room, and the scent of pine lingers in the air. Emily, the teenage daughter, playfully teases her younger brother, Lucas. "Lucas, if you eat one more cookie, Santa's gonna have to widen the chimney. Better that than him skipping us altogether." The parents, David and Karen, chuckle as they sip hot cocoa. Karen pulls out a songbook. "All right, everyone, let's kick off Christmas Eve with some carols." "Let's not." My voice is banned in 12 states. Laughter ensues, breaking the tension. Karen insists, and the family starts singing Silent Night. The camera pans outside the cabin, where a faint, shadowy figure appears at the edge of the forest, unmoving. Later that evening, the family is eating dinner. Emily glances out the window and freezes. Mom? Dad? I think someone's out there." The room falls silent. David grabs a flashlight and peers into the darkness, but sees nothing. Probably just a deer, or Bigfoot, finally making his Christmas round. The tension breaks with a nervous chuckle, but Emily remains uneasy. As the family continues their evening, the caroling resumes, this time with Deck the Halls. The shadowy figure is now halfway across the yard. Lucas notices a draft and shivers. "Can we just carol about heating bill? Deck the halls with insulation." Everyone laughs, but the humor fades quickly as Karen glances outside and gasps. "David, look." The shadow is now close enough to make out vague details. A tall, dark silhouette with unnaturally long limbs. It doesn't move, but its presence is oppressive. David bolts the door and draws the curtains. The family huddles together. Why is it getting closer every time we sing? There's an old story about a shadow that follows carols, but it's just a legend, right? David's face darkens. He hesitates before speaking. It's not. When I was a kid, my parents told me this cabin was cursed. They said if you sing the wrong song, you summon it, but I thought it was just a scare tactic to keep me from sneaking out. The family stares at him in horror as the lights flicker. A faint knock echoes from the front door. The knocking grows louder and more frantic. The family freezes, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, the carol they sang earlier begins to hum faintly, coming from inside the cabin. "Do you hear that?" It's now directly at the door, and the sound of the carol grows louder as the door handle begins to turn. "It's not just a curse, is it, David? It's punishment." David nods, trembling. "When I was a kid, I led someone into the woods near here. I thought it was a prank, but they never came back." The door bursts open, revealing the shadow. It looms over the family, its form flickering like smoke. Heavy breathing is heard. Suddenly, a faint whisper fills the silence. "Silent night, holy night." The scene fades back in. The family is gone, and the shadow stands alone in the cabin, staring directly at the camera. Some sins aren't forgiven, and some songs never end, leaving only the sound of the haunting carol echoing into silence. The sound of howling wind and faint whispers fills the air. Slowly, a snow-covered house surrounded by dark trees appears on the screen. Inside, a family sits by the fire, laughing and exchanging gifts. A knock on the door interrupts the FAQ scene, loud and sudden. Christmas Eve, a time for warmth, love, and togetherness. But what happens when the chill of the storm carries something unnatural to your doorstep? Family exchanges confused glances. The knock echoes again, louder this time. The father, Mike, opens the door. A man, around 40, stands outside, shivering violently, his face pale and gaunt. "Please, help me. I got lost in the storm. Behind him, the blizzard rages. The family hesitates, exchanging worried looks. You're lucky we're here. Come in before you freeze. As the stranger steps inside, the camera lingers on his shadow. It seems to stretch unnaturally long, almost touching the ceiling. Whoa, that's a dramatic entrance. Do you always knock like it's the end of the world? Something like that. The family offers the stranger a blanket and hot chocolate. He sits by the fire, staring deeply into the flames. So, Mr. Wanderer, got a name? Or should we just call you Frosty? You can call me Gabriel. His voice is flat, almost mechanical. The family exchanges uneasy glances but tries to remain polite. What were you doing out in a storm like this? Looking for a place to rest. I've been traveling a long time. His nails are unusually long and sharp, though he keeps them hidden under the blanket. Later, Gabriel insists he doesn't need food. Instead, he sits motionless, staring at the Christmas tree. Something's off about him. He hasn't blinked once. Maybe he's just in shock. Let's not overthink it. Lucy notices that the snow outside seems untouched near where Gabriel claimed he had been walking. Hey, is it just me? Or does it look like he floated here? Her attempt at humor falls flat as Karen and Mike look outside, their unease growing. That night, the family hears faint scratching noises coming from the living room. Mike investigates and finds Gabriel standing in front of the tree, muttering to himself in a language that sounds ancient. Gabriel, what are you doing? Gabriel turns slowly, his eyes now completely black, just admiring the decorations. They remind me of home. Karen steps into the room and gasps as she notices the ornaments on the tree. They're all subtly rearranged into strange rune-like patterns. Those weren't like that before. Gabriel tilts his head, his smile widening unnaturally. Are you sure? Okay, this is officially the creepiest Christmas ever. What's next? Are the reindeer outside going to start growling? Gabriel chuckles, a low and unnatural sound, as if he's mimicking a human laugh. Reindeer? No, something much bigger. His words send chills down their spines, and the humor is quickly replaced by fear. Karen finds an old family photo on the mantelpiece and her face goes pale. Gabriel is in the background, standing among the snow-covered trees. Mike, he's in this photo. How is he in this photo? This was taken 20 years ago. Gabriel stands in the doorway, his voice cold and sharp. I was here then, too. I've been watching you, waiting. For what? For Christmas to bring you all together. It's the perfect night for a reunion. Gabriel's body begins to shift, his skin peeling away to reveal a monstrous, skeletal figure beneath. His hands extend into claws, and his teeth sharpen like daggers. The family scrambles to escape as Gabriel's laughter fills the house. The windows frost over and the doors won't budge. So anyone else regretting opening the door? Or is it just me? The family hides in the basement, trying to catch their breath. Suddenly they hear Gabriel's voice, calm and mocking. You can't hide forever. I know all your secrets. Karen finds an old book in the basement with strange symbols. She realizes it's a way to banish Gabriel, but it requires a personal sacrifice. Karen begins the ritual, chanting the incantation from the book. Gabriel bursts into the basement, his form flickering like a shadow. You think you can send me away? You invited me in. As Karen finishes the last words of the incantation, Gabriel lunges toward her. Some doors should never be opened. Would you have let him in? Dimly lit room with soft, eerie music playing in the background. A music box's lid slowly creaks open. Suddenly the music stops. They say gifts bring joy. But what if your Christmas present brought something else? Something dark, something cursed. It all started on Christmas morning. Jake, a curious 12-year-old, tore through wrapping paper like any kid his age. But one box stood out. A small antique music box with no tag, no sender, no clue where it came from. Jake inspecting the box, winding it up. The ballerina spins as the eerie melody plays. The room grows unnaturally quiet. Jake's parents brushed it off as a vintage gift from a distant relative. But Jake, he couldn't shake the feeling that the box was watching him. Wait, can a box even watch you? Or is Jake just bad at Christmas vibes? That night, as Jake lay in bed, he wound up the music box. The melody echoed softly through his room, lulling him to sleep, or so he thought. Jake's bedroom. Shadows creep along the walls as the music fades. Jake's eyes snap open to see a woman in black standing in the corner, her face obscured by a veil. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. And when Jake blinked, she was gone. Just a trick of the light, right? Or was it? Over the next few days, Jake began noticing things. The melody seemed louder, longer. And every time it played, the woman appeared. Closer, clearer. Jake seeing the woman in different corners of his room, her features become more distinct. A pale face, hollow eyes, and a mouth twisted into a sinister grin. Jake told his parents, but they laughed it off. "Too many scary movies, buddy." His dad chuckled, but Jake knew. This wasn't a movie. This was real. And let's be honest, if your kid tells you they see a creepy ghost woman, do you really just laugh? Or do you move to another continent? Desperate, Jake dug deeper into the music box. A small inscription on the bottom read, "To hear her song is to summon her soul." That's when he found an old letter tucked inside. Of the letter, as Jake reads it aloud, it warns that the music box belonged to a widow who cursed it before her death. She seeks a new soul to take her place in the afterlife. Jake's heart raced. The music box wasn't just a gift. It was a trap. Returning it wasn't an option. The curse wouldn't let him. The room grows darker as the box begins playing on its own. Jake screams, slamming it shut, but the melody doesn't stop. That night, Jake made a plan. He had to destroy the box. He grabbed a hammer, his hands shaking, and raised it high. But before he could strike, the woman in black appeared, closer than ever. Her veil lifted, revealing a face twisted in agony and rage. Jake freezes as the woman screams, the sound deafening, shattering the room's windows. The music box flies out of his hands, landing perfectly upright. The melody grows louder, faster. Jake was paralyzed, unable to move as the woman reached out to him. And then, the sound of the music box abruptly stops. Did Jake survive? Or was his soul the price for silencing her song? One thing's for sure, some gifts should never be unwrapped. Faint sound of the music box starting to play again as the credits roll. And hey, if you ever get a mysterious gift, maybe just re-gift it. Better safe than haunted, right? Do you dare wind up your own music box? Let us know in the comments. And remember, sometimes silence is the scariest sound of all. The sound of faint whispers grows louder. Suddenly, the image of a beautifully intricate vintage wreath appears, its red and gold ornaments gleaming as the whispers morph into a chilling voice. Beware the choices you make, or they'll bury you too. The wreath's image glitches, revealing a fleeting vision of a woman screaming, blood pooling on the floor. Emily jolting awake in her cozy apartment. A Christmas movie plays faintly on her TV. Sometimes the most festive decorations carry the darkest secrets. And for Emily, Christmas Eve was about to become a nightmare. Emily is browsing a bustling flea market. Vendors shout festive greetings, and Christmas music plays. Her eyes fall on a unique vintage wreath at a dusty old stall. "Oh, you've got a good eye. That one's special." "Special? How so?" "Just has history. It's yours for $20. Emily hesitates but buys it. As she walks away, the vendor mutters something inaudible. Back home, Emily hangs the wreath on her door. It fits perfectly, almost as if it belongs there. That night she hears faint whispers but brushes them off as her neighbors. Seriously, thin walls, great for eavesdropping, not so great for sleep. The whispers grow louder as she tries to fall asleep. Suddenly she hears her name. Emily. Beware the visitor. They'll bring danger. Emily bolts upright, her heart pounding. She looks at the wreath, but it's silent. Shaking her head, she laughs nervously. Great, I'm officially losing it. Maybe I need less caffeine or less Christmas movies. The next day, Emily's friend Sarah drops by unannounced. Surprise! I brought cookies. As they chat, Sarah gets a call. Her face pale. Emily, it's my ex. He's outside. I think he's stalking me again. Emily's heart races as the whispers from last night echo in her mind. The wreath glimmers faintly in the background. Maybe we should call the cops. Before they can act, there's a loud bang on the door. Sarah's ex shouts from outside, enraged. Emily grabs her phone to call the police, but the power suddenly cuts out. Later that evening, after the police handle the situation, Emily stares at the wreath. She whispers to herself, that was a coincidence. It has to be. As she turns away, the wreath whispers again. The red car. Beware. Emily spins around, but there's no one there. Nervously, she laughs to herself. Okay, maybe it's time to throw this thing out. But honestly, have you ever tried finding a trash can during a snowstorm? She leaves the wreath on her door. The next morning, as she drives to work, a red car runs a stop sign, nearly hitting her. Number freaking. She glances in the rearview mirror and sees the faint outline of the wreath in her apartment window. Emily starts hearing the wreath more frequently. Its warnings become darker and more cryptic. By Christmas Eve, you'll face the truth. She tries to throw it away, but every time, it reappears on her door. One night, she douses it in lighter fluid and sets it on fire. The flames consume it, but when she checks the door hours later, the wreath is untouched, hanging as if nothing happened. This isn't real. It can't be real. She calls Sarah for support, but the call drops as soon as Emily mentions the wreath. She looks out her window and sees a shadowy figure standing by her car, holding a faintly glowing object. On Christmas Eve, the wreath becomes relentless, whispering non-stop. They know. The truth, it's buried beneath the snow. Emily snaps and tears the wreath off her door. As she does, the whispers morph into anguished screams. Suddenly, she remembers a repressed childhood memory, an argument between her parents on Christmas Eve years ago. The words "they'll never find out" echo in her mind. She starts digging in the snow outside her apartment, ignoring the blistering cold. Sarah arrives, startled. "Emily, what are you doing? It's here. The wreath. It's been trying to tell me something." She uncovers a small, rusted box. Inside is an old photo of her parents and a newspaper clipping about a missing person, a man who vanished on Christmas Eve 20 years ago. The man looks eerily like the vendor who sold her the wreath. Emily hears heavy footsteps behind her. She turns to see the vendor, his face twisted and decayed, holding the glowing wreath. "You should have left it alone." The wreath bursts into flames, and the vendor lunges at Emily. Emily's panicked breathing is heard. The whispers return, louder and more chaotic. You can't escape the past. Wreath, now hanging on Sarah's door, glowing faintly. The screen fades to black with the text. Would you ignore the whispers? Some decorations carry memories. Others carry curses. This Christmas, beware what you bring into your home.